Have you ever sat in church on Sunday feeling at peace in your heart, but worried in your wallet? You pray, you give, you believe, but when the bills come, the fear comes back too. You were taught to be humble. You were told that money is dangerous. You grew up hearing that rich people are greedy. And so without even realizing it, you learned to stay small. You learned to fear wealth. But what if that fear was built on a mistake? What if the book you already own, the one sitting on your shelf, the one you read every week, what if it held a completely different message about money? A message most people never see. Today, we are going to open those pages together. This lesson is for English learners who want wisdom that truly works not just in the classroom, but in real life and in your bank account. Let's begin. The answer was always there. Principle 1, the Great Misquote. There is a sentence that almost every person has heard. You may have heard it in church. You may have heard it from your parents. You may have seen it on a poster or a movie. It goes like this: money is the root of all evil. 5 words. And they have caused more financial damage to more good people than almost anything else. Here is the problem. That sentence is not in the Bible. Not exactly. What the Bible actually says is this: the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Read it again. The love of money, not money itself. Do you see the difference? It is small, just a few words, but the meaning changes everything. The Bible never said money is evil. It said that when you love money more than you love people, more than you love God, more than you love truth, that is where the problem begins. Money is not the enemy. The wrong relationship with money is the enemy. Think about a knife. A knife in the hands of a surgeon saves lives. The same knife in the hands of someone angry can cause great harm. The knife is not the problem. What matters is who holds it and why. Money works the same way. But for generations, Christians heard a half sentence, a misquote, and they built a life philosophy around it. They avoided wealth. They felt guilty when they succeeded. They believed that staying poor was somehow more holy. They confused financial struggle with spiritual goodness. This was not their fault. They trusted what they were taught, but the teaching was incomplete. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men in the world, once said that the first rule of building wealth is to understand what you are dealing with, not to fear it, not to avoid it, to understand it. The Bible agrees with him. It just said so 3,000 years earlier. The answer was always there. So if money itself is not evil, what does the Bible actually say we should do with it? That brings us to the first real principle, the one that changes how you see everything. Principle 2, you are a manager, not an owner. Psalm 24 verse 1 says this: the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Everything. The land, the trees, the rivers, the gold in the ground, the money in your wallet, all of it belongs to God. Now, most Christians have heard this verse. They nod when it is read, but very few have stopped to think about what it actually means for their financial life. If everything belongs to God, then what are we? We are managers. We are stewards. We are the people who have been given temporary responsibility over something that belongs to someone greater than us. Imagine this. A wealthy businessman asks you to manage one of his offices while he is away. He gives you his building, his staff, his resources. He says, take care of this for me. Grow it. Use it well. Now, what would a good manager do? Would they be afraid of the money in the safe? Would they lock every door and never spend anything? Would they hoard the resources and hide them? No. A good manager would learn the business. They would make smart decisions. They would invest where needed. They would take care of the staff. They would work to grow what they were given. That is exactly what God asks of you. Not to be afraid of wealth, but to manage it faithfully. Deuteronomy 8, verse 18 says something that almost nobody quotes in church. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. He gives you the ability, not just the permission, the actual capacity, the skill, the mind, the opportunity, the energy to earn. If God gives you the ability to produce wealth, then refusing to build wealth is not humility. It is a waste of a gift. Think of it this way. If someone gave you a violin, a beautiful, expensive violin, and you let it sit in a corner gathering dust, never learning to play, never making music, would that honor the person who gave it to you? No, the best way to honor a gift is to use it well. Your financial life is the same. The ability to earn, to save, to build that ability came from somewhere. The Bible says it came from God. And God does not give gifts so they can be buried. A poor mindset says, I should not want more. More is greedy. A faithful mindset says, what I have been given is not mine to waste. I must use it well for myself, for my family, and for others. This is not prosperity gospel. This is not about asking God for a new car. This is something much quieter and much more powerful. It is about shifting how you see yourself. You are not an owner. You are a manager. And managers are not afraid of what they manage. They are responsible for it. The moment you stop seeing money as something dangerous and start seeing it as something you are trusted with, everything changes. You make better decisions. You stop spending to feel good for a moment. You start thinking about next year, next decade, the generation after you. You ask different questions. Not can I afford this both, but is this a wise use of what I have been given? That shift from owner to manager, from fear to responsibility, that shift is where financial transformation begins. Principle 3, sow generously, reap generously. There is a law in nature that every farmer understands. You cannot harvest what you did not plant. And the size of your harvest depends on the size of your planting. A farmer who plants 10 seeds will not get the same harvest as a farmer who plants 1,000 seeds. That is not luck. That is not favoritism. That is simply how the law works. 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6 says this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. This verse was not written for farmers. It was written for you, for your finances, for your life. Now, before you think this is only about giving to your church, stop. It is bigger than that. The law of sowing and reaping is a financial law. It is a universal law. Long before modern economics had a name for it, the Bible described what the world's best investors now call compounding. You give something now, it grows, it multiplies. It comes back in forms you did not expect. Here is what most people miss. The verse does not say whoever sows will reap. It says whoever sows generously will reap generously. The word generously is doing the heavy work in that sentence. Generous giving is not about how much you have. It is about how you hold what you have. A person who earns $500 and gives 50 is not giving less than a person who earns 50,000 and gives 100. The Bible knew this. Jesus sat across from a widow who gave 2 small coins at the temple. He told his followers that she had given more than all the wealthy people that day, not because the amount was bigger, because the trust behind it was bigger. Studies have found that only about 20% of Christians who call themselves believers actually practice tithing. 20%. That means 8 out of 10 people who read this verse, who agree with it, who believe it is true, do not live by it. Why? Not because they are greedy, mostly because they are afraid. They say, I will give more when I have more. But here is the quiet truth the Bible teaches. You do not give because you have enough. You give because you trust that enough will come. Giving from a place of trust is completely different from giving from a place of surplus. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, wrote that your actions are votes for the person you want to become. Every time you give even a small amount with a full heart, you are casting a vote. You are saying, I believe there is more where this came from. I believe I am not defined by scarcity. I believe in the law. That vote compounds over time, like seeds in good soil. And the Bible adds one more piece. It says God loves a cheerful giver, not a reluctant giver, not a calculating giver, a cheerful one. Someone who gives with an open hand, not a tight fist. An open hand can receive. A tight fist cannot. If you have been holding your money tightly because you are afraid there will not be enough, today is a good day to loosen your grip. Not recklessly, not without wisdom, but with trust, with the understanding that the law of sowing and reaping has been working since the beginning of time, and it will keep working whether you participate or not. Principle 4, multiply what you have, do not bury it. Jesus told a story. It is one of the most important stories about money ever recorded, and most Christians have read it as a story about hard work. But it is actually a story about something much more specific. It is a story about the sin of playing it safe with what God gave you. In Matthew 25, a wealthy man was going on a long trip. Before he left, he called 3 of his workers. He gave the first one 5 talents, the second one 2 talents, and the third one just 1 talent. In that time, 1 talent was worth many years of wages. This was real money. He left. Time passed. When he returned, he called the 3 workers back. The first one had taken his 5 talents and made 5 more. The second had taken his 2 and made 2 more. The wealthy man was pleased with both of them. He said the same words to each. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Then the third worker stepped forward. He said, I was afraid. I knew you were a strict man. So I buried your money in the ground to keep it safe. Here it is, all of it, exactly as you gave it to me. And the wealthy man was not pleased. He was not grateful that the money was safe. He was angry. He took the talent away from the third worker and gave it to the one who had 10. Now, most sermons about this story focus on effort. Work hard. Be diligent. Do not be lazy. That is true, but it is not the whole truth. The third worker did not lose the money. There was no theft, no foolish spending. He simply buried it in the ground, kept it perfectly safe, and he was still rebuked. Why? Because safety was not what was asked of him. Growth was. This is a message that many Christians have never heard clearly. God does not simply ask you to protect what you have. He asks you to multiply it. That means learning. It means taking calculated risks. It means building something, maybe a small business, maybe consistent saving and investing over years, maybe a new skill that increases your earning power, or putting money into something that grows while you sleep. Proverbs 21, verse 20 says this: "The wise person saves for the future, but the foolish person spends everything they get." Saving is not timid. Saving is the beginning of multiplication. It is the preparation before planting. Warren Buffett started investing at 11 years old. He bought his first shares with money he had saved from delivering newspapers. He did not wait until he had enough to start. He started with what he had. He multiplied what was small, and he kept going. You do not need to be Warren Buffett, but you do need to ask yourself one honest question. Am I a first servant, a second servant, or a third servant? Am I finding ways to grow what I have been given? Or am I burying it in the ground of fear, calling it safety, calling it humility, when really it is just fear wearing a spiritual mask? Because the third worker's problem was not that he had only one talent. His problem was that he let fear make the decision. He said it himself: "I was afraid." Fear is the enemy of faithful stewardship. Not risk, not ambition, fear. A poor mindset buries the talent and calls it caution. A faithful mindset studies the ground plants carefully and trusts the harvest. The answer was always there. Principle 5. Debt is bondage. Freedom is biblical. Proverbs 22 verse 7 says something very direct. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Slave. That is a strong word. The Bible did not say the borrower is uncomfortable. It did not say the borrower is inconvenienced. It said slave. When you owe money, your choices are not fully your own. You cannot quit a job you hate because you need the next paycheck to cover the minimum payment. You cannot give generously because there is nothing left after the bills. You cannot take a risk, start something new, say yes to an opportunity because the debt says no first. Debt does not just take your money, it takes your options. Now, the Bible does not say that all debt is a sin. It does not say that borrowing a mortgage makes you a bad person. Life is complicated, and sometimes debt is part of how we move forward. The Bible understands that. But the direction the Bible consistently points toward is freedom, not bondage, not obligation, freedom. Think about the word mortgage. It comes from an old French word that literally means death pledge. You pledge your income month after month, sometimes for 30 years, to a promise you made on one day. That is not a small thing. That is a long commitment with real cost. The biblical principle is not never borrow. It is move toward freedom as fast as you wisely can. There is a woman named Maria. She grew up in a modest family. At 22, she had 3 credit cards, a car loan, and a student loan. She was not extravagant. She was just living the way everyone around her lived. Debt felt normal. Debt felt like the only way to have things now. One evening, she sat down and wrote out every number, every balance, every interest rate, every monthly payment. She put it all on one page, and she felt sick. Not because she was a bad person, but because she finally saw the full picture. She was paying for her past every single month. Her present income was already spent on choices she had made years ago. That night, she made a decision. She would spend less than she earned. Every month, a little more would go toward the smallest debt. When that was paid off, she would take that payment and add it to the next one. Slowly, the list would shrink. 3 years later, the credit cards were gone. 4 years after that, the car loan was gone. She did not feel rich, but she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt free. Freedom is what the Bible points toward. Not wealth as a destination, but freedom as a direction. Spend less than you earn. Save the difference. Reduce what you owe. These are not exciting principles. They are not complicated, but they are ancient and they work. The Bible wrote them down long before any financial advisor was born. Principle 6, build for the generation after you. Proverbs 13 verse 22 says this, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Not just their children, their children's children. The Bible thinks in generations. It is asking you to think in generations too. This verse is one of the most ignored financial verses in the entire Bible. Most financial conversations in church stop at giving, tithe, offer, give generously. And those things are right and good. But the Bible also says build something that lasts beyond you. Most people in the world are trying to survive their own lifetime. They think about this month, this year, maybe the next 5 years. The Bible invites you to think bigger, to think about the family name 20 years from now, to think about what your grandchildren will inherit, not just in money, but in wisdom, in habits, in values. Luke 16, verse 11 says, if you have not been faithful with money, who will trust you with true riches? Faithfulness with money is a test, not a punishment, a test of character, a test of whether you are ready for a greater responsibility. When you manage your finances with integrity, when you save consistently, give generously, avoid unnecessary debt, and build slowly, you are not just helping yourself. You are building something. You are writing a script that your children will read. They will watch how you handle money. They will absorb your relationship with wealth before they can even name it. Nelson Mandela once said that there is no passion to be found in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. He was talking about courage and justice. But the same truth applies to your finances. You are capable of more than surviving. You are capable of building. Not perfectly, not overnight, but intentionally, one decision at a time. The families that change their financial story in one generation do not always earn more than everyone else. They simply decide differently. They live below their means. They save before they spend. They teach their children what money is and what it is not. They give with open hands and build with patient ones. That is the biblical vision for wealth. Not a mansion, not a luxury car. A legacy. Something your children's children will stand on. Principle 7. Test God in this one thing. There is only one place in the entire Bible where God says to his people, test me. Only one. Malachi 3, verse 10. God is speaking, and he says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. Test me in this and see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. Test me. The God who created the universe, the God who parted seas and raised the dead, the God who asks us to walk by faith and not by sight, that same God said, test me in this one specific area. He did not say, test me in prayer. He did not say, test me in worship. He said, test me in your finances, in your giving, in your trust with money. Why would he say that? Because he knows. He knows that money is where the heart is most honest. You can say you trust God on Sunday morning, but your bank statement tells a truer story. How you spend your money, where it goes, how much you keep, and how much you release. That reveals what you really believe. God is not interested in your money. He owns everything anyway. But he is deeply interested in your heart. And he knows that a person who trusts him with their finances has truly learned to trust him. If you have been on the edge of starting, if you have read these principles and nodded and agreed, but not yet moved, this is the invitation. Start with one thing, not 5 things, one. Maybe it is giving 10% of this month's income before you pay any other bill. Maybe it is writing down every debt on one page the way Maria did and deciding that this month is the month you begin to move toward freedom. Maybe it is opening a savings account with whatever you have left and deciding that from now on, you are a person who saves. You do not need to change everything at once. You just need to begin. The principles in this lesson were not invented last year. They were not created by a financial advisor in a glass office building. They were written in a book that is thousands of years old. A book that has been read by more people than any other book in history. And somehow, for many people who hold that book in their hands every week, these pages stayed closed. The answer was always there. Let us go back to where we started. There is a faithful person sitting in church on Sunday. They pray, they believe, they want more for their family, but they are afraid to want it too much. They were taught that wealth is dangerous. They were told that struggling is humble. They carried a misquote in their heart for years without knowing it was incomplete. Today that changes. You are not an owner. You are a manager. Manage well. Sow generously and trust the harvest. Multiply what you have been given. Move toward freedom. Build for the generation after you. And when you are ready, take God up on his only open invitation to be tested. 7 principles, all of them in a book you may already own. Principle 1, the problem was never money. It was the love of it. Principle 2, you are a steward, not an owner. Manage what you have been trusted with. Principle 3, sow generously, reap generously. The law has always worked this way. Principle 4, multiply, do not bury. Growth is faithfulness. Principle 5, debt limits you. Freedom is the biblical direction. Principle 6, build for the generation after you. Principle 7, test God in your finances with full trust. And underneath all 7 of these, one quiet truth that has been waiting for you all along. The answer was always there. What is one thing from today that you will begin this week? Write it in the comments below. Share this lesson with someone who needs it. This lesson was made for English learners who want wisdom that goes beyond words. Keep growing. See you next time.